Hello and welcome to another Try&Fly. Part 1 of a new Try&Fly for a business jet, the RWDesign Citation Mustang. This is take 2 because, as it turned out, since the last major Windows update, there was a new feature around audio settings and for applications, for apps and programs. And it so happened to be that Windows decided to put OBS on the lowest setting, almost 0, which caused the weird behavior that I experienced now for quite some time, that all the sounds from X-Plane and programs like Pro ADC were really, really low, no matter what I set up. And when I recorded the first part, it turned out that I was you could hardly hear me, and also hear nothing of the aircraft. So I figured it out in the course of that first part, but yeah, obviously that didn't make that video exactly great. So therefore I'm re-recording, although I don't really have time for something like that, but there's nothing I can do now. And we're going to look at the RWDesign here on the ground again in the second part, which worked out then first time round, because in the meantime I had discovered the issue and had fixed it. We are going to do the flight. Now, before I start with the actual aircraft, I wanted to just give a little tribute to Q8 Pilot. Q8 Pilot announced today in the morning, on this Saturday here, that he would be retiring from video making. It's due to private reasons for the family and a quite stressful job that he has. But, and that is something that struck me again, he also said that contributing factor has been the toxicity with which some YouTubers comment and kind of criticize, well, you couldn't really call it criticize anyway, his work. Yeah, so here we go, another YouTuber that kind of packed in now because it was getting a little bit too much. I wish Q8 Pilot all the best, and best wishes also to his family, and yeah, we will miss you. We'll miss you because I think he gave great contributions to the flight sim community in these past 5 years. His videos were the best, and I think they were quite inspiring to many people. And yeah, it is a pity that we're not going to see more of that in the future. But anyway, you see, that is life, and it also gave me another round of thoughts where I'm kind of saying to myself, as long as this is something that is fun for me and where I don't feel pressured and obliged to do things, although maybe I don't really want to do it in a certain way, as long as I can stay me here and do my hobby the way I wanted to do, I will continue producing videos. Some people may not like what I'm doing. Well, that's life, and nobody is forced to watch it. Other people I know appreciate very much what I'm doing, and for those I'm grateful, and for those people I will also continue producing content and also making live streams in both languages, German and English. Okay, so I want to get that off my chest because it kind of impressed me this morning. And now, with no further ado, let's repeat that first part and let's look at the RWDesign. Now, I have all the shaders off because when shaders are on, it doesn't do this outer model really justice. We're not looking at a Coronado level modeling here, and especially texturing, but we're looking at a really decent and good model. And you should know me by now if you watch my videos more often. I'm not one for outside models. So I look at them kind of see, am I impressed or not, or do I like what I see? And in this case, it is nice what I see. I think it does the Mustang justice. Yeah, it looks like a lot of work has gone into it. It may not be really perfect. There are the odd little pieces that, yeah, let's say, are simplified. Yeah, but in general, I think it looks very good. This is a very strange one. This is turning all the time. The engines are not running, by the way. Yeah, as I say, there are some simplifications, but they don't really disturb the general impression. So outside model for me is okay. What's far more important to me is the inside, because this is where I'm sitting and flying the aircraft, and there's no point of me getting all worked up about wing flex and outer model, because basically I hardly ever look at it. I look at this, and if this is right, then I like the aircraft, because I'm sitting in here, I have to look at this, and if you have an ugly cockpit, then yeah, that is really then a bummer. But in this case, I personally think we do not have an ugly cockpit here. On the contrary, I think we have a very, very good cockpit. Again, yeah, there are some simplifications. There are some areas where things have been modeled and drawn, and it is visible that they are. In other areas, we seem to have some kind of photographic elements. And all in all, I think the main impression, when I just look around here, and again, you know, I'm not looking in the cabin all the time as a pilot. Let's open the door, by the way. This is how you do it, or one way. So I quite like it. I think it's a reasonable implementation of a Mustang Garmin cockpit, and therefore I think I'm looking forward to try this. Now, this is not a pure try and fly in the sense that I'm flying with this aircraft very first time. For one, I had to kind of program some keys and stuff and get all my hardware set up, because I do have old GoFlight hardware. I've got some switches, I got throttles, I got the honeycomb yoke, I mean, and yeah, so all these buttons, they want to be programmed, and also the autopilot, the MCP, and so on, and things like that. So I did all that, and for that I had to actually test the aircraft a little bit. So I'm already rather familiar with it, and I can tell you already, I'm actually quite okay with it, because I had two relatively good flights with it, and I had very little issues, apart from one, which is actually not an RWDesign thing, but it is actually an XP11 autopilot Garmin thingy. And we had that in other aircraft as well. So quite impressed by it, and I quite like it. Okay, next thing. If you press on this folder here, it says menu, by the way, at the top here. You just press here, you come into this thing. So this is the main menu, and then they have pop-ups. I think there are keys that you can define for those pop-ups, because it is a little bit awkward that you first have to enter the menu and then you have to open the pop-ups. I think there are commands for that. If you're looking for those, what you should do is look for Mustang. And then you see there is one for exterior doors, for MFD pop-up, and for weight and balance menu. MFD pop-up. I know what that is. Yeah, I'll show you in a moment. So there are quicker ways of getting into this. I just haven't programmed more buttons now, because this is the kind of thing that I'm usually not doing, having menus on buttons. I only code kind of light buttons and things like that. So if we go to the doors, we have the front door open. There's also left baggage, rear baggage, right front baggage door, and the emergency exit, by the way, which is here. And as you can see, the door comes into the cabin and is then put on a seat, all a bit slow from the animation. And although we don't have any wind, these engines are windmilling quite a bit. Yeah, not 100% realistic. Anyway, let's close those other doors and we just keep it with the main door and just have a quick look. So that's the door menu, which we should probably get rid of. Now we can see it here. Yeah, there's also little stairs here that come out. Then there's the weight and balance, and that is, let's add a co-pilot and let's actually fill up the airplane. What you can see is that the airplane starts to tilt towards the fuller tank. At least the wings do that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that the whole aircraft has actually tilted, but they kind of simulate the weight and the balance of it. Now we have the center of gravity at 24%, which is relatively in the middle, in the band of aft 30% and forward 19%. And here we have now another feature. By the way, you can also add luggage here and you can add people here. Okay, so the feature is that now, now I have this co-pilot in the middle of my view, which is completely a no-no for me. But thank God, you can click here and they're gone, although they still take up weight. There's also weather effects. That's probably lip rain or something. Disabling screen vignetting means you can see here now at the moment there's kind of a vignette effect around the rims here of the displays. It looks actually okay. It isn't disturbing, so I haven't turned it off. You can turn on the flashlight, which is basically the XP11 flashlight, and also important, you can start the GPU. It's then hooked up automatically in the back of the aircraft. All right, and you can actually hear it. So there is a checklist, but it is a purely kind of print checklist. It's a little bit on the small side, and it's not automatic. So you can only flip from page to page. Thank God, because I am one for actually this kind of checklist. There is already a checklist for the Mustang out there on the forum. Just look for clist.txt Citation Mustang and you will find it. It's by Jean-Pierre, Goofy JP, and I think it's doing a good job. So I prefer this one. That's why I have brought this up for me here, and I'm going through this checklist. There are some, how should I put it? Yeah, they had to do some simplifications or things for realisms in the aircraft. So, for example, we've got the throttle levers. The throttle levers, you can't move them now because they're in the cut-off detent and they're locked in there. And in the real aircraft, what you'd actually do is you kind of pull on this lever here, on this metal latch, and you pull it up and then you can move it out, or you pull it up and you can move it into the cut-off position to cut the engines. Now here is a little bit of a problem with this, because the click spots for that are a bit strange. So if you want to start engine number 1, which is here, right, and you click here, although you're still pointing on that engine, see what happens? And that is because the click spots are a little bit unexpected from this point of view. In order to actually open the other one, you need to be as far left as possible. Now, the click spots are not on the same position now to get it back, and that is even a little bit more awkward. So maybe RWDesign, if you see this, can you please maybe document commands, or if there aren't any commands for that, can you maybe create it in one of the next updates so that we can apply this to buttons? I'm still looking for how you get this latch pulled up so that we can get into the cutoff position. I haven't seen a command for it, at least not in an obvious place, which makes this a little bit awkward. So you really need to come down here, and then you can click here and here. All right. The other really, again, this is like that in the real world, but in the real world it's far easier to deal with it, because in the real world you have your hands on the throttle lever and your thumb is on the left side when you are the captain. And if you want to extract or release the speed brake, which I think at the moment isn't working because we are in the cutoff position. Let me quickly bring this out. So you see, so you need to wait that the arrows are horizontal, not vertical, because vertical is the thrust lever. Then you can actually switch between retracted or extended speed brake. It comes up in the checklist. It took me ages, and this is actually the go-round mode. Again, this is probably the standard XP11 go-round, I would think. I'm still looking for which button might, or which command might move this. And actually, in fact, because in my last flight I had a bit of an issue with that, I'm going to now see if we can find this. So there is a speed brake extend full, and there's a speed brake toggle key 3. That's keypad 3. Keypad 3 is not a very good key for that, because I have that for views. Okay. So I should actually change this. So let's go here, let's take this out, and let's use some key for that. What could I use for that? Let's see, I use this one here, key 1. Now let's see if that works. Yeah, that's it. I got my speed brake. So I retract it again, and then I press this key 1, which is Ö, but you can pick your own. Then the speed brakes can, yeah, and here that's what they look like. Yeah, a little bit, although it's not too bad. Yeah, I'm not sure if they really look like this in the real aircraft, but yeah, I think it shows. I think there's a lower part. Yeah, there it is. It's just hard to see from here. So here you see what they look like. They look a bit odd, don't they? A bit chaps, as we say in German. Anyway, as long as they kind of break the speed. And I press that button again, and they come in again. So we've got that covered. Now I need to try and find the click spots. Yeah, that is. I don't know. Let me see. Is there a way to make sure to cut off Shift Control 1? No, that I already tried. That does not work. Shift Control 1. Yeah, it does not work. So I have a feeling that these don't have commands. So I would have to program something in Lua in order to use that. But since we are not dealing with this during landing and so on, it's okay if I can move down here and then, yeah, and I forgot I should have done it actually with the first one, because now I have to move over. So it is a little bit awkward, RWDesign. Maybe you can create commands for that, so that at least I could put it on some buttons or some keys and make things a little bit easier for us. That would be great. Okay, so that's the two slightly weird things. There's also some stuff with the lights and the buttons. So for the lights, I've already created some scripts, and also the battery and the generator. Again, they have done it non-standard way. So the aircraft is not 100% standard, but again, when it comes to the generator switches and the battery, these are not used during flight, so I have no problem if I move there and switch it off. That's fine. Now the next thing, the yokes, they're all great and fine, but and again another maybe request for RWDesign, if you would consider that. There's hardly anyone, I would guess, but maybe I'm wrong, that would use this here to steer the aircraft. All right. I would prefer if you have a click spot here like Coronado and many others do, where you can hide and show that particular yoke if you need it or don't need it. Instead of having to go here and then click here. And then they're both gone, and if you want to have them back, you need to again go into the menu and bring it up. Just an idea. I personally don't need to be able to use the mouse to move the aileron, because there is a steering mode that you can activate in X-Plane that does the same thing, and it's far more intuitive than this. Just an idea. Okay, fuel. We have refueled fully. The packs and luggage is loaded. And now we're going to close the doors. So I need to open the door page, go here, close the door. And now we need to go through the switches, and that's the reason why door is closed. That's why I removed the yoke, because you have no access to the switches. When the yoke is there, it needs to be turned off while we're doing all this. Left and right fuel boost switch needs to be in the off position. Now again, this is slightly difficult to see, but they are actually facing down. And unfortunately, we have the X-Plane way of dealing with switches, and that is 3-state switches you need to drag. And yeah, it is actually difficult. If you want to do this quickly, usually it doesn't work out. So I've been moving these switches up and down quite a bit because of that. Anti-ice systems all off. We still have the pitot-static, so now it's off. Then the air conditioning switches, they are all off already. Cabin and cockpit fans, yeah, they are always on. So you need to drag them here to switch them off. The oxygen supply, you need to click here to pull it. And the engine sync switches, no, I always say switches. It's one switch, and it's actually here. And unfortunately, although maybe that's the click spot, because this is a yeah. That's the problem with the X-Plane standard way of buttons. So here, now it's off. So a bit awkward to get to this. I need to change the view to get there. Battery switch. So we are pulling the battery switch into the battery position, which is up. Okay, we were in the middle, which is, what is the middle position? Is the off position. Then the left and right generator switch. For some reason, we are supposed to bring it up. And unfortunately, the mouse gets caught on these switches a lot, especially when I hit the border up here. That's just the way it works in X-Plane. That's not RWDesign, don't get me wrong, although I would wish that they maybe use some of these new, let's say, more practical ways of dealing with switches that we can see in other payware add-ons. But yeah, it's the standard way, and it's okay. Aviation power switch, it's supposed to be turned on. I've got that actually on a switch. Clock time noted, yeah. So now we do have all the stuff coming on. Now, strange thing happened yesterday when I was setting up everything. When I clicked here, what actually happened was the 2D version, the kind of pop-up for the standard X-Plane Garmin MFD came, and it had the Cessna 172 engine parameters here, which is completely useless. And I was thinking, why did you do that to us? And there were no buttons here. And I said, well, really now? And not only that, let me go back. Look where the buttons are. So I was kind of juggling around here in order to get to the buttons. And I was really wondering why did they do that? Really unpractical. And then when I started this morning with recording the first part for the first time, I just clicked like I did yesterday, and instead of the pop-up, I actually got this really practical view. Although you're actually stuck in this view, so if you're in here, you need to click again in order to get out of it. You will not be able to change your views while you're in here. But what they did, and that is actually quite good, is they have this menu here. That's where it's supposed to be, so that it's practical for us simmers, because we're not in the real aircraft and we don't have the switches in our hands reach, you know. So great idea, works well. The only thing is that some of the switches, when you work on this here and the scroll wheel and all that, doesn't always work the way you would expect it. So I had actually issues with this, and yeah, it is a bit awkward to get to the right thing. So you probably get used to it. Okay, so here we have again yeah, the inner and outer ring, and you have to click on it. The thing is, unfortunately, the scroll wheel does not work like it would be in the Garmin. So when you're on the Garmin and you use the scroll wheel, you see there is no movement of the zoom or so. Now it is. Here it isn't when you are on one of these. That has not been done like this here. So I can't use the scroll wheel. That's a bit of a bummer. Still, I've got actually one of my old GoFlight hardware things. It's a GF48. It has buttons and it has dials, and I actually programmed the inner, outer ring and all that, and all the main buttons, the enter button, the clear button, the flight plan button, the procedure button, and the menu button. I think that's the ones. Plus the inner and outer dial of the FMS wheel. I programmed that into this unit, which is actually very, very practical because it's much easier for me now. Still, I mean, you can use this, but it is a little bit on the awkward side, as you can see, because I now can't use the mouse wheel. I need to actually do this by clicking. Do I have to click? This is actually, I haven't yet figured it out, to be honest. So sometimes something works and then not, and then I'm not sure why it's working or why it's now it works, yeah. But I can't use the wheel. So that's a bit yeah. Maybe that can be changed in a future version. It hasn't really been thought to the end. I would prefer if they do it the way it is actually done in X-Plane. So here I actually want X-Plane default if possible. But that's just me, because it is a bit awkward. It is a bit awkward. It makes this already difficult way of entering your flight plan into the Garmin of X-Plane even, well, for me it does, or maybe I've been overlooking something. It makes it harder actually than it is with the default stuff. Anyway, let's go back. You need to click here again in order to get out, and let's continue with the checklist. Left, right, fuel boost switches. The fuel boost switches are here, and we're supposed to turn them into the normal position, which is here. Fuel transfer knob is off. Pilot mic switch is headset. Pitot static switch reset. So we bring it up. Then we bring into the off position. Anti-skid switch we turn on. Then there's a rotary select test. Now that's an interesting one. It's here on this side. You see it here. And what you want you to do is, and you can use the scroll wheel for this, the mouse. But you know, X-Plane. Let me see. Very slowly you can switch one by one. You can't click, unfortunately. You need to use the mouse wheel. And you go through all the various tests. And actually my mouse wheel has a bit of a problem. It's starting to slip on me. Whoops. Okay, so once you're through, you've done all the tests, then you're done with this puck safety switch. So the puck safety switch is here, and we're supposed to put it into the off position. That's where it is. Beacon light, turning the beacon light on. I use one of my external switches for that. Cockpit lights. We don't require cockpit light at the moment. Actually, the displays, if you put them in the day mode, it means actually you can't see anything. So I'm not sure if this is the correct label here. But if you want to put the background lighting on, then you do it here. And by the way, the lights in the cockpit you do up here. They are very explainy. Okay, so that's how they work. The usual dragging over the whole screen thing. Right, so air conditioning switch is off. Air source select knob, both. The air source select knob is here. Again, slowly move it up. Okay. Press switch normal. Yeah, cabin dump switch is pulled. ELT switch is in the arm position. Co-pilot mic switch is in the headset. Oxygen supply, we push it now. That means we activate the oxygen supply, and you can see the pressure, the air of the oxygen pressure here coming up. The throttle in the cutoff position. Yep, we've put them back here. Engine sync switch. Now we turn this one little switch here on the side. That's why we have to move over here into the normal position. And we have checked the fuel quantity, so we are ready for entering the flight plan. So for that, I go here. I click the flight plan, and now I'm clicking the menu because I'm going to delete the flight plan. I'm going to enter it again. All right. We are here in Munich. We need this at the beginning. I'm going to go to the procedure. Yeah. And I am selecting the departure. Enter. And you see how nicely that works when you have hardware. Yeah, it's such a much easier like that. Anchor 9 Quebec is our departure. It puts until anchor, so I press enter. We've got it in here now. Then I'm moving to the next position, and I'm going to enter with the inner wheel. We go next to Akini. Outer wheel, inner wheel, outer wheel, inner wheel. So inner wheel changes the letters, outer wheel changes the position. And Akini. Yeah, well, enter. Enter. Then next, inner wheel. One turn to get into the input mode. Ostis is the next one, so I'm going O, outer wheel, S, outer wheel, T. And this is far more difficult with the mouse. I mean, it works, but oops, it is a bit awkward. And especially when, like in my case, my mouse is actually giving up. So I need to actually get myself a new 3-button mouse wheel type mouse. Because that old one, which is actually as old as my old PC, so over 10 years, has actually started to give up on me. After so many years, I think I can't really complain. It has given me good service. And now next, inner wheel B for Bamta. Bamta, enter, enter. Now, menu button, select the arrival, enter, and then we are selecting the Bamta 4 Alpha arrival 08 left, the usual thing on my Try&Fly, load it, and that should bring us to Mike. Yep. So we still have a bit of yeah, it's a bit of a strange looking thing, but as you can see, it's actually not strange. It's just the orientation of the map. So we are actually on Bamta, then Rosa Blandu Mike. Now what's missing is at Mike, we're going directly to the airport. Now that won't be very helpful for landing, so we're going back to the procedure. We select the approach, enter, ILS 08 left, and we're using the MIQ transition for the initial approach fix, enter, and I'm not sure what happens if I activate this, because I loaded it and I always have issues with that. Let me see. Activate it. Now, what does that actually mean? Aha. So, okay, no, this is as messed up as usual. Doesn't matter whether I activate it. Activate actually means it directly puts now Mike as the first waypoint. Now that's we don't need. So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to delete echo delta delta mic, because that is now actually not helpful. So I'm using the clear button for that and enter. And now here's a problem. The thing is, the two mics, they are not connected. Okay, so there is actually a discontinuity, and that's something that it's bugging me in the standard explain Garmin and FMS, because there's actually a gap, and if you don't watch out, you will actually not follow. From mic, it will actually do something completely different, because as you can see, we still have this line in there. So I tried several things. I tried to delete this mic. We can try that here again. But that does not necessarily mean that it's now going to do it correctly. Whoops. Yeah. So let's clear this. Now what happened is, see, we now got a hole here. So we have the transition in there, but we now have a hole because I deleted mic, and it does not consider the mic from the transition to be part of the flight plan. So we have actually now a discontinuity, and that's a bit of a bummer. I just wanted to show you that. That's why I did this. So what we need to do is we need to now enter mic again. So I have to bring it back again. So that we have at least mic as part of the flight plan, and then I need to make sure that when we are at mic with the normal path, that I then use a direct to, eventually use the direct to, in order to bridge the gap which is still here. All right, so that's something that has nothing to do with RWDesign. This is just the way things are. And the other thing is that we are going to use the direct to button. I'm doing this from here to activate, enter, to activate our first waypoint. And now what you can see is after I've done that, things have actually normalized, because the line that you see here now is not the line for shortcutting here. It's actually the line for the missed approach, because in case of missed approach, we're going back to let me declutter this map a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can see now we have now again a flight plan. It is complete, and we have the first waypoint Delta Mike 070. You should do this. You should make sure that your first real waypoint is the next waypoint to fly to, because otherwise you get really strange things happening. Happened to me already before. We're done with the flight plan. Now this is not RWDesign. This is all standard standard explain. Now I still have got the ILS in here, 109.5 IMNE. The course is 080, which is correct. We are on the GPS for heading. We also have our heading almost correct. Let's put this on 80, because that's the runway heading we are going to leave at. And I have Unicom 122.8 set up, so frequency-wise I'm fine. And now for start, all doors are closed, battery voltage 26 volts. You can actually see this here. So we have 26 volts, and the CAS message, there are two CAS messages, but they are due to the engines not running, so they're fine. And in the case of the engine start, what they say is we use the left engine start button, then we bring the throttle lever into the idle position, and then after the engine has started, we activate the generator. So check on, yeah. So they are already on, strangely. I'm not sure if that is the correct procedure, because I would normally think that the generator should be turned off until the engine is running. So I still have to check if this is the correct procedure. You should also check your ITT and N1, that they don't go overboard here, but they don't. So I don't think we have too much realism in the systems. It is, I think, a reasonable amount, but it is actually an easy aircraft to use. The other thing is the ignition I would kind of think that we should turn ignition on for engine start. That doesn't show up in this checklist either. Yeah, but the engine start anyway. So the middle button is, by the way, the disengage button. This is the left engine, this is the right engine. So I'm going to follow this checklist now and start the left engine first, although I would normally start with the right engine, but let's go by the checklist. I press here for a short time, then I watch this coming up, and then I use this click spot to allow the fuel to be ingested. And we can now see the engine spooling up. And our generator is on. And that allows us to start the second engine. I click on the spot, I watch this value here to go up. I click here. And then we can watch N1 and ITT. Well, actually ITT doesn't do anything. Now that I look at it, it looks pretty much as if nothing happens in the intake. Not sure if that's correct. Well, anyway, we have two good starts. We can now disconnect the GPU, which I'm going to do now here. Whoops. And we check the ICAS, and we can see that apart from the heater for the PS, pitot-static, that's probably the pitot-static, which we can turn on now, and then this message is gone. So that's the before taxi now. Pitot-static is on now. Pack safety, that's this here. We put this into the upper position so everybody is strapped in and awaiting the imminent departure. Air conditioning switch, that's all on this side here. We're turning this one on. We're turning these into the low position. I love these switches. Elevator trim to take off. So use your buttons or whatever it is, or you can actually move it like this as well. Flight control test, full and free. So go and move the yoke. Now, you see what I mean with the yoke? Yeah. Would be great if we could see this immediately. So I'm quickly checking the flight controls, which appear to be okay. Speed brakes are retracted, flaps are up, flight control test is full and free. Heading back, aligned to runway, we've done that already. Altimeter set QNH is 1013 anyway. And by the way, because we are in Germany, we need to go to PFD, altitude unit, HPA, back. Alright, that's it. Then, transponder standby. Actually, transponder doesn't appear to be in standby mode, so let's put it into standby mode. Autopilot, yeah, you can turn it on, turn it off, test it. I usually don't do that. Your damper is off, display avionic nav setup. So we've done all that. And next is the taxi checklist, ATC request for taxi. Yep, and in that case we turn the taxi light on. And the taxi light is here. It's actually the middle position. And flight I can turn on as well. For some reason my just freshly programmed taxi button doesn't work. Well, anyway, parking brakes, release. And now you need to have at least 50% N1. Before that, this thing will not start to roll. And now I have a little problem with my headset, because it decided to be one-sided. Nah. Brakes test, yeah. So we need to really bring it up to above 50, and you need to probably keep it above 50, because otherwise this aircraft will not roll. I'm not sure that that is realistic. I find it a little bit strange that you need to bring up the engines that high. I have a feeling that maybe the coefficient for I don't know, roll resistance or something like that is a bit too high. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's a bit strange though. And we will now taxi to the holding point. You can use the steering axis, which is very sensitive, unfortunately, here for me. It's actually very sensitive. You can also use the rudder axis, but yeah, it can be a little bit difficult. So let me very quickly check the response curve on the nose wheel. Yeah, I think we have a problem here again. It's probably, yeah, the joystick. Sorry, the joystick is actually having a little problem. Okay, so yeah. My hardware, a lot of my hardware pieces, at least the classic ones, are very old. So I've got stuff that is 6, 7, 8, partially 10 years old. And unfortunately, all of that is leaving me one by one. My mouse, my throttle levers, my Cytec yoke, my MCP here from VR Insight. And I have started now to acquire new hardware for various parts. So I have the Honeycomb as the yoke now, which is actually one of the best buys I ever did, and I hope it will hold a very long time. The Logitech joystick, it's great for Airbus flying, and still the pitch and roll axis are still okay, but the Z axis is unfortunately already has left me, which makes steering hard with it. I have got new throttle levers from a guy in Stuttgart. There has been actually a little problem because one of the axis was a plastic part that broke already. So I've got the replacement parts. He sent me a set, and now I need to find the time to actually put it in. Yeah, so I have two Cytec parts now left, and one is the rudder pedals, and they are broken as well, but they're still usable. And replacing those will be, I don't want another Cytec. I'm not going to buy Cytec hardware anymore. I'm done and fed up with it. But the problem is, when it comes to rudder pedals, you either use CH, but I'm not sure that they are really what I want. Or there are some very expensive options that easily range in the 700 to 1,000 euro area. And I don't really feel like spending that much money on a set of rudder pedals. So at the moment I make do with what I have here, but I'm not happy, as you can imagine. Oh, by the way, my runway signs are working again. Now, if you have updated to something like 1140 recently, and suddenly, when you use Airport Environment HD from Mr. X, this library that makes high definition runway and taxi signs, and your taxi signs look very weird, it's time that you go on the forum, go to the Airport Environment HD page and download the latest version, which is already a couple of months old, because in one of the last updates of X-Plane, things have changed, obviously in the way they kind of do the signs, and therefore I got garble on them. And I was wondering about that, and I think it happened when I updated to 1141, because I haven't realized it before. I would have seen it before, I'm pretty sure. So I think it happened when I did the update. And yeah, just replacing the older version of the Airport Environment HD library in the custom scenery folder with a new one fixed the problem. So that works quite nicely. So I'm very quickly going to turn on the topology off the topology mode so that we can concentrate on the route. We're not really interested in the surroundings. I keep power in and around 50, a bit above 50, because otherwise you will slow down, and also be careful when you take back the power, you will be stopping very quickly. So this thing doesn't want to taxi. It does want to fly, yes, but it doesn't want to taxi. Again, I'm not sure if that is actually really realistic. Could be. Don't know. So I'm presetting the autopilot. We're putting it into nav mode. Are we getting slower? Quickly check. Where's the ground speed here? By the way, let's go into PFD and let's put up the DME and the bearing part. Okay. Whoops. I think we're getting faster and not slower. So I'm now below 50 and we're actually slowing down. I need to actually find out how I can activate the true airspeed display. I know that's possible. I just can't remember how. So no, maybe during the flight we can check it out and find it, because it's actually good to see what the true airspeed is. So that was the taxi part, and we're now going to move to the holding point very quickly, hold short there, and okay, and that's it. So we've got about an hour, 50 minutes actually. From here, I will cut now the video, and we're going to look at part 2. And part 2 will continue with us going on the runway and then do our usual flight. Yeah, look at this rather beautiful new add-on here from RWDesign, which is really working well. I can tell you this already. So I quite enjoyed it on my way. Actually, the second part starts with us taxiing, and I was so into it now that I forgot. so we're now at the runway, but don't worry, I'm going to handle this. Yeah, it is a nice aircraft. I can tell you that, and our flight is going relatively without problems. I know already the places where I need to watch out, so I'm going to tell you about them in the second part. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time.